Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I'm Lori Ryan, and I'm an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hi, and welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast. Our guest this week is Lori Ryan, and I hope you all have had a great week of reading. I wanted to introduce Lori. We met at a Writers Police Academy. I've talked a little bit about attending that in other podcasts, and it was the last day, like the last lunch before everybody dispersed, and we just got talking. And I think we bonded over dogs mostly.
Yeah, probably. That makes sense. We both have a lot of dogs, right?
Before all the cat lovers and the non-dog lovers hate us completely, tell us some about your books and what you're writing.
Well, I started out writing kind of what I call contemporary romance with like a little twist of suspense, and so I've got one series that, that's kind of the feel of it. It's my Sutton Capital series, which is still my fan favorite, I think. Readers seem to really love that, and then I started to get more and more into suspense because I really like writing the mystery side of things, and I have a few that have more of a police procedural feel. Of course, there's always a romance in there for me because I love that. But lately, I've been writing another series that is just straight contemporary romance with a friend of mine, Kay Manis. And so she and I have a small town contemporary romance series that we're doing. And it's fun, but it is hard for me. Like I'm constantly, telling her, I think we should put a dead body here. Like somebody needs to stumble across a dead body, or there should be a fire or something, or whatever. So it's actually kind of hard for me to resist just sticking something in there, along those lines. But it's been fun doing the new stuff. Like it's been neat doing something that's different.
It's so interesting because the industry is set up to sell books within genres, and I think that both the readers on one end and the writers on the other end don't necessarily fit into like these 4 or 5 big categories that had their name up on the side of walls of bricks and mortar bookstores, where you'd walk into a store and there would be a heading for mystery, there'd be a heading for romance, there'd be a heading for science fiction, there, and a lot of books and ideas and interesting stories blend and cross and twist and have these pieces, and there's got to be, I think, a better way to sort them out for the readers to find what they really like.
Lately, I've actually started reading a ton of like paranormal and urban fantasy and stuff, and it's funny because I fell in love with certain writers. Like I love Ilona Andrews is like phenomenal. And then I wanted to find other stuff that was like hers because I had burned through all her books and I'm waiting for her to write more stuff and really resisting the urge to harass her on a daily basis about when they're having another book out. It's actually it's a husband wife writing team. So I do have to fight the urge to email them every day and be like, when are you writing? Are you in front of your computer right now? But it's, I think that there are sources out there. I mean, and I've checked a bunch of them and I still haven't found anything that's really like the feel of her, but like Goodreads is a good spot for that. And, like you can find places where, readers are talking about, and that's what, Goodreads is really sort of a reader run thing where, you can find lists that, and you'll search like and find things that actually say authors that are like Ilona Andrews, and so I think that's a good way to do it. Although I still, like I said, I still haven't found any that are quite feeding that urge the way she was. I mean, or that need or whatever it is, the way she was. But
I think I got many follow-ups from that. One thing is, as an author, I'm a little afraid to go on Goodreads as even a reader, because they're so they have the reputation of being so vehement about not letting authors
Mhm.
promote or be there active, um,
Yeah.
which is fine but scary because I'm an author, but I'm also a reader. So, and the thing you said at the beginning is what really hits me,
Yeah.
is that you wanted something with the feel of what of the Alona Andrews books. And what I find is so many times the books are categorized by where it is or who the author is or who the main character is. You can find books about baker sleuths, or you could find more books about retired policeman sleuths, or you can find those sort of easily categorized things. But I react to books with
Mhm.
feeling and how they made me feel and how I felt reading it, and what they kind of presented as the worldview. And that's what I want. And it doesn't matter to me, I can get the same feeling from a book that's set in rural
Mhm.
Illinois and a book that's set in London. It the setting doesn't necessarily make the difference.
Yeah.
It's how it made me feel. and and I am waiting for artificial intelligence slash machine learning to
Yeah,
get
right?
itself in gear and be able to do that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
search and find discovery. So they are just not fast enough for me. They need to get
I
going. I want
know.
them to
I
hook into
know.
quantum computers so they can do this really fast. So how do you research?
It depends. I have, well, like you and I met at the Writers Police Academy, and I've done the SWAT writers training, and I actually am taking right now some training courses with my local police department. And so I do a lot of stuff like that, where
Hmm.
I am actually going and talking to people about stuff and things like that. But I also just have like a team of people who, because most of my books have either some legal issues, then there's like the police procedural stuff. Sometimes there's military stuff in some of my books. They almost all have somebody getting injured at some point, so I need medical stuff. So I have a team. I have like a psychologist, a couple of lawyers, although I was a lawyer once myself, but a couple of lawyers, um, a former police chief, who I think he also was former SWAT at one point. And then I have like forensic experts and and former military people. So I have tons of people that I go to. So a lot of my research is actually like texting somebody and being like, okay, I've got a sniper on a roof, and here are the conditions, and here's where the thing is, and just having them tell me stuff. And then a lot of it is reading like blog articles and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
just things like that. It's like, with almost any character we make up, nowadays, especially, you can usually find somebody who's going through that thing that your character is going through, or who has gone through it and is writing about it online, and you can go read their blogs and stuff and get a lot of information from them.
So one of the readers likes to know and asks this, where our stories come from, and I'm not quoting her directly, but she does say our beautiful stories, which I think is wonderful. Um, so are you getting story ideas from the research, or are you doing your research to fill out the idea you already have, or both, or how does that work?
Typically, it's to fill out the idea that I already have. Although certainly, like I'm taking these classes at the Austin Police Department right now, and I mean, my notebook is filled with ideas for that.
Hmm.
So sometimes I'll get ideas and I'll jot them down, and a lot of those I don't ever even come back to. So usually, I get ideas in weird places. A lot of my ideas come to me in the shower, and it'll be some little snippet, like,
Psycho, right?
right? And it'll be some little thing like I think, oh, what if a pregnant woman had to go on the run, and then that starts this whole idea of, um, and the story might not even, it'll change a lot. By the time the actual story comes out, it'll change a lot, but it's usually from one tiny little snippet like that. But so most of the time, my research is going to fill out something that I've already, decided the story is going to be. But sometimes that, that research will lead to like a subplot or some little aspect of the character
Mhm.
that I didn't plan on being there, but it came out through the research. So,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it kind of all goes into it.
Did the "What if a pregnant woman had to go on the run" idea become a book?
Yes, so that is the Love and Protect, which is book one in my Evers Texas series. And in that one, she goes on the run, and it's actually a book about a woman who was in an abusive marriage and was getting ready to leave the abusive marriage, and then her husband dies unexpectedly. And for, about 5 minutes, she thinks it's over. Like, this is all over. And I can have
Mhm.
my baby and I'm safe and
Mm.
everything is fine. And then she realizes that his family, who's a very powerful family, is probably never going to let her go. And so she, with the help of a doctor who had been trying to get her out of the relationship the whole time, he helps her to go on the run. And she ends up in this small town, Evers, Texas, which is where that series takes place. So
And you said it changes a lot. Do all your stories change a lot from that initial conception of, it great word for your story that was a pregnant woman who
yeah,
went on the run, but all your stories that, you had that initial idea, that initial spark, do most of them change before they're finished a lot, or do some of them follow through from your original view?
I think, yeah, I mean, well, they all probably change a lot from that initial little snippet, because that's sort of just a like such a small little snippet that they start with. But then once I get the outlining done, they don't tend to change a lot from the outlining. I'm not, I mean, I will sort of run with something. Like if I'm in the middle of writing and suddenly, a scene starts to head in a different direction than I thought it would, I definitely will go with it. I'm not so like married to my outline that I won't let the characters actually come to life. And so sometimes like I'll be writing and a character will say something like in my first book, Legalese, um, the the main character sort of blurts out this secret that he hadn't planned to tell anyone, and it ended up being one of my favorite scenes because he's blurted this out to his cousin and his best friend, who are now like on the floor laughing at him at this thing that he blurted, and so like it became this really phenomenal scene. So things will kind of like come to life, but as far as where the plot is heading, I don't do once I've gotten it kind of written out on paper. I don't do a lot of changing it. I'm not. I don't like switch or switch chapter order a whole lot. Like a lot of authors, they'll say like, oh, I don't. I plot on little index cards so I can move the pieces around on the board. Well, I just don't do that. I mean, I really rarely ever move things around. But I
Wow.
will, every once in a while I'll run into, I'm trying to think of an example. I think I had this happen recently and I can't remember what it was or what happened, but I know like sometimes I will be writing something, but like I thought something was going to go one way, and I have a friend who I call all the time for plotting advice,
Hmm.
and it's a one-way relationship. She never calls me with stuff about her plots, but I call all the time and say, I had this happen and this happened and this happened, now what do I do here, and whatever. And I forget, recently she said something to me like, that's completely unbelievable. And I was like, no, no, listen, I can't rewrite this whole thing. Can you just let that be, leave that part alone and let that be the way it is. And, pay attention to this part that I need you to fix here. And she was like, I can't do that. Like, we really need to go revisit the fact that, this is not okay over here. And I was like, you're killing me with this.
Oh.
And I just ended up having to like completely rewrite stuff based on what she the plot holes that I kind of knew were there, but I was trying to ignore, and she was just like, "You can't ignore that." So,
Yeah, and sometimes you think that you'll know there's a plot hole, and you think, but I can patch it,
hmm
and you know I can deal with it. And then sometimes there are those plot holes that the ones that you have to kind of come. You can't just patch from the top. You got to come underneath the
yeah,
foundation and
yeah.
really
And that's the
really
way,
reroute them.
yeah. And oh, I do remember what it was now, and I can't really explain the whole thing without like giving away my entire book.
No, no, don't tell
But
us.
I know. Well, it's the work in progress. It's the one that's going to come out in like I think May 1st. It comes out, and it's actually book 7 in that Evers Texas series. And I had she made me completely change like who was doing something because I had set up a bad guy who really probably wouldn't have done what he was going to do, you know. And I was just kind of trying to ignore the fact that it would be unbelievable for somebody to do that. And she's just like, and it's it's like I really like for my books, especially the suspense and the mystery ones, I like them to be believable. I mean, I put a lot of effort into
Hmm.
making sure that the police procedure is right and that all of the legal stuff is right and the psychology stuff is right and all that. And so, it's like because it drives me nuts. Like if I'm reading a book and I'm like, oh God, that would never happen, or that's not the way it does it, or like, like a big pet peeve of mine is you always see in movies and books you always see somebody using a stun gun to knock somebody out. Well, you don't knock somebody unconscious with a stun gun. It just doesn't happen. And so there's little things like that that I just make sure that I those things are right. And so it was like I knew this motivation and the reasoning behind this character was not right, but I was just so behind on writing that book that I was just like forcing it to happen. And she was just like, no, you can't do that. So it it was much better once I rewrote it according to her. It was much better. But
And when you did that, when you made that change, did you find other things fell into place, or did it
yeah, no,
disrupt
no,
everything?
everything fell into place much better.
Uh,
I
uh.
know.
We try to avoid those, but see, I'm a writer that I could not write if cut and paste didn't exist. I move things all the time, and from uh, cutting and pasting within sentences, within paragraphs, within
Yeah. See, isn't it funny how different we are? I mean, I will do it within sentences and
yeah.
paragraphs. I will definitely do it. I'll change the order of, how somebody said something or whatever. But I just don't do it as far as it's very rare for me to like move a whole chapter or something. So yeah, it's so funny how different writers are.
I have, yeah, in most of my books, I have a main file, a document file as I'm writing, and then I have a second file with that's also the name of the book called Move Around because there are
Yep.
pieces I know are going to fit somewhere, but I don't know where exactly or how
Yeah.
that's going to work. Yeah, we are very different.
Yeah. I know it's funny. Yeah.
So, okay, let's go back to some of the shorter fun things. Do you have a favorite color?
Teal.
Ooh, I like that color. What do you know why that
No,
do you have
I really don't. Like all growing up, my favorite color was purple, but I don't know. I'm just drawn to everything teal. I don't know. I think I find it soothing. Yeah.
it's rich too.
hmm
I like that.
Yeah.
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 How about a favorite taste?
There's so many of them. Like I don't think I could pick a favorite. Chocolate. I love bread and butter,
Oh,
like warm bread and butter.
yeah,
Um,
that's good.
yeah, yeah. I have way too many favorite food categories to really call it a favorite anything.
Now, you sort of slipped in there that you were a lawyer at some point. You don't consider yourself still a lawyer?
Well, I mean, I guess once you're a lawyer, you're always a lawyer, but no, I don't practice at all. So I left. I For a long time I was actually a dog trainer, and then I started writing. So I've been a lot of different things. So no, I don't. I mean, technically, I suppose I'm a lawyer, and I do use that knowledge a lot in the stuff that I do.
Mm,
But um,
mhm.
but nope, and I will never go back to practicing law. So
So, what would you do if you weren't writing?
I really don't know.
Would you go back to dog training?
No, I don't think so. I got really burned out with that. I owned a business in town that was really, it was kind of fun, but we did dog training. We also did daycare and boarding. And so that's hard to just, you don't have a lot of
Mm,
vacations or anything. And, it's really tough. And that's not something that, like, from a family perspective, it's not something I would want to do again because it was,
yeah.
I mean, my husband and I would have to run over to the boarding facility all the time, and it just was not fun. And then I specialized on the training side. I specialized in dog aggression and dog bites, and
Oh boy.
yeah, and so it's like it was the kind of thing where I got a lot of calls from, like, people around the country wanting me to, like, you know to analyze a dog bite situation, and they were trying to save a dog who had really done some damage to somebody, and so it was just the kind of thing where there's no,
Sad.
yeah, it's not like there's no happy ending there, and it's not a good situation
Yeah.
for anybody to be in. So it just got to the point where it was just, you know not fun anymore at all. So
Ah, that's too
yeah.
bad. Um, so do you have any strong fears? I think about people being afraid of dogs, and do you use those fears then in books?
I have a lot of anxieties. Like, and a lot of them focus around my
Oh,
kids. So I'm super, super anxious about, like, when my kids were younger. My youngest now is 3, so I don't worry about this one anymore. But I had a huge, huge fear of, them being left in the car seat. So I used to make, like, if my husband was driving the kids to school or to daycare, I would make him take pictures of the empty car seat and send them to me in the morning so that I could check those. If
oh,
I started to panic, I could check it later and say, okay, I got one from him today, so I know they're okay. And yeah, so I have sort of real, I do have a lot of fear about them, like, kidnappings and things. I have a lot of fear about that. I mostly, that I try to combat by actually forcing myself to be a little bit, sort of a little freeing with them. So, like, my kids will run around the corner to friends' houses, and there are some of my neighbors that don't let their younger kids do that, and I do it because, it's one of the ways that I kind of make sure that my anxieties don't cross over to them, because my oldest, who is 8, does have a ton of anxiety, and I realized pretty early on that she was getting it from me. So he would hear me say
oh,
to my husband, you have to watch her every second. You can't turn around at all in a park because somebody could take her. And, she was hearing all of that. And so now she's got a lot of anxieties also. And so I kind of have to force myself to actually, like, act against my anxieties and stuff. And I do put them in books sometimes. I think I would have a hard time. I mean, a lot of my people get kidnapped in books and stuff. I haven't written, like, a child kidnapping yet, and I don't know if I could force myself. I
mm.
think that would be really hard for me to do. But it would probably be a good exercise for me to do it. Um, you know,
Exercise and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
exorcise. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, but so those are most of them, center around my kids.
Well, that's very admirable that you're trying to not have it carried on to your kids, and very difficult on
Yeah.
you, and that's admirable. So, um, do you have any sayings that you remember your parents saying that now you hear yourself using?
Yes, I do, and I can't think of what they are, but I do. I have those moments where I cringe and go, "Oh man, my mom always said that." So I definitely do. I can't think of what they are, but um,
But
yeah,
they
I
come
do
back.
say, like, "Don't make me say it again" to my kids a lot. But yeah, it's just the and I do say I have to say things like 5 million times to them because they're 8, 5, and 3, so it's like, you know, yeah.
I gotta admit, I hear myself saying things to my dog sometimes. What, you tell them to sit and they
Yeah.
don't, and then I say, what did I say?
Yeah, right?
And that always works. I I don't know what it is, but thanks to our parents for
I
helping train
know,
our
right?
dogs too, right? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I have this odd little desert island that you're going to be stuck on forever, forever. But it has the ability to play movies, but only 3 movies
You're
forevermore. You
so
have to
funny.
watch them forever. So, which 3 movies are they going to be?
Okay, well, the first one I don't even have to think about. It's Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is so funny because I don't write paranormal or urban fantasy or anything like that. Although I think someday I will. So I actually have one, like a series plotted out that I need to get to someday. But I when Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was in the theaters, I went and saw it. I think 3 or 4 times in the theaters. Um,
Oh
and
my
I'm
God.
not a person, I don't, like I have friends who are writers who will say like, "Oh, do you guys want to sit down? Like we could watch this movie together and analyze the themes that are in it." And I'm like, "Why would you want to do that?" I'm not a big person for like analyzing themes or looking at how something is structured or anything along those lines. And I, for some reason, in watching that movie, I saw things over and over again that I was like, that's why that's so good right there. And that's why this character is so lovable. And that's like, and so for me, when I went to that, I got ideas for books that I was working on every time I went. So I actually was sitting in the movie, like writing down notes in the movie theater on a notepad. Even though I couldn't see what I was writing, I was just scribbling ideas. And and then I also just love Baby Groot. So like my kids get me Baby Groot stuff all the time because I love Baby Groot. So that one, let's see. I think probably The Outsiders, even though I'm not sure I would want to watch that over and over again because I feel like my memories of that movie are probably better than the actual movie might be. If I watched it now, I don't know.
Oh,
But that one for me like was a big deal growing up. It was a movie that just like resonated, and so probably that one. And then gosh, I don't know. Trying to think. I don't know. I'm sure something will come to me. Maybe Wonder Woman. But I feel like there's other movies that I've seen where I've just been like, I want to watch that over and over again. But the one that I've watched probably the most times in my life is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is weird since it's not. I don't know. If I thought if you said to me like before that one came out, would that be a movie you'd want to watch over and over again? I would have said like, no, of course not. Like I enjoy seeing it because I like movies like that. I love superhero movies and stuff, but and I love action movies and
mm,
things like that.
hmm.
So I wouldn't have thought that that would be what I would watch again and again, but I don't know. For some reason, it just spoke to me.
Well, that's wonderful, and I can sort of see the connection with, um, you
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
it
yeah.
comes back to? It's how it made you feel, and the same thing with The Outsiders. And I wonder if you wouldn't want to see it again now because it might make you reconnect with the feelings that you had when you first
Hmm.
were watching it, and what it meant to you then. So, okay, most of us writers have at least one bad habit word. Some of us have more. What's
um,
yours? And if you don't have any, I'm going to be really
right.
unhappy.
Um,
Or I could be generous and give you some of mine.
I have ones that are definitely on my list of things that like if I go to try and to start to type it, I immediately stop because I've been trained either by editors to not do it or by myself. So I'm trying to think. I have I think grinned is one of them. I say grinned a lot. Um, and so I have to always like smiled and grinned are hard for me to stay away from and to like find other ways to say that. So that's a hard one for me. Let's see. I have an editor who trained me like to say might instead of may because may is like so I have things like that where I've been trained to do a certain thing by
Uh-huh.
an editor. And then there's some things that like I know my editor is never gonna be able to teach me. Like lay, lie, and lathe. Like I'll never get those right, and I just sort of make my best guess at it and hope that my editor is going to fix for me. um, which is weird because most grammar, I mean, I'm pretty solid on my grammar, you know. And even if I get something like I'm the type of person that if I'm reading a rough draft of mine and I catch that I made a your or your mistake or anything like that, or their mistake or two, I cringe that I made that mistake. I mean, I'm really like, I know
Yeah.
those and I follow them pretty religiously. And so if I make a mistake like that, it drives me nuts. And so, but for some reason, I just laid and laid. I haven't gotten in my head yet. So, or lie and laid.
If people are wondering about my background's in journalism, and I spent a long time editing, started writing and then was an editor for a long time. And if people are wondering about the difference between may and might, I say may is permission and might
Yes.
is possibility.
Yeah. And so I definitely like she got that through to me pretty quickly. And so there's little things like that where I've been trained to do certain things and it works pretty well. So
Does she talk to you about the difference between more than and over? That one drives me nuts.
no, she hasn't, but I'm not sure that I make that mistake. I don't know that that's a mistake that I make very often. So maybe that's why she hasn't. Yeah. I don't know.
Because people use over for an over is spatial.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you shouldn't have over 10 people. You have more than 10
Yeah.
people.
I don't know
Unless
that
you've got,
mistake.
something hovering over
Yeah.
10 people.
Yeah.
Then you can.
I don't know. I'll have to go look at my books and see if I do make that mistake, but I don't feel like I do.
I talk back to the television all the time
Mm-hmm.
because people mess that up. And they mess up I and me.
Yeah.
Just drives me
Yeah.
nuts. I hear it all the time, and I'm hearing it on, it's on HGTV all the
Mm-hmm.
time, the presenters. I think, what is the problem? They can't find people who know English? What is it? Yes, I get very cranky about this. Uh, when it sounds like when you are putting together a story, it sounds to me like maybe you don't have a lot of unpublished or half finished books. Ones that you started and then went.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm kind of I kind of plan what I'm going to write and then I write it. I have one that I actually started writing with my critique group, and I just never finished it because it hasn't fit into the series yet. And then I have ideas. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have a set of 4 books that I want to write in my Evers, Texas series, but I don't know when I'll get to that. So it may be a couple years even before that happens. And then I have um, I have a friend who knows someone who owns like a parachuting company. They take people parachuting, and I interviewed her once because I was like, that would make a super cool setting for a series of books. And so I plan to someday write that, but it's just gonna be a lot. But as far as actual like plotted stuff or manuscripts, I think I only have that one that I started. Oh no, wait, no, I have 2 because I did start my dragon series. I am gonna write a dragon series someday, and I did start that. So I have 2 books that are started but not finished yet, and that's about it. I pretty much just don't really do that.
Well, I can see that, how you don't do it. And the ones that you haven't gotten to yet, I don't think
Yeah,
of those
yeah,
as
yeah.
unfinished. They're just not gotten to yet. Yeah. So I do have some that I have a box with and files in the computer, but I still think they may live someday. I may be able to figure that out. I may pull them out at the end some way somehow. Guess I'm optimist, huh? Um,
Yeah, and I think that I feel like people who have wanted to write for a long time tend to have those more than somebody like me who just jumped into it, because you when you're learning craft, you write stuff and then put it down. So yeah, I feel like people who sort of went in and are, like, are learning craft. I feel like that's where a lot of that starting and stopping stuff happens from. And so because I didn't have that experience, I didn't, I just kind of jumped into this without having that background at all.
Mm.
Um, I think that's partly why I don't have it.
We may have to come back to you in 30 or 40 years and ask if you've developed any over that time. So going back to the editing, one of the readers asks how it feels for the well, she in fact says, how much does it bother you to find editing errors after your book is out?
Oh, a lot. It's I hate it, and it drives me nuts too because I mean, I do about 3 to 4 rounds of editing with professional editors, and then
Hmm.
I actually have a team of reader proofreaders, and most of the time it's about 7 or 8 people who are getting that book to proofread it before I send it out, before it's published. And so when I find stuff after that, it just drives me bonkers. It's like I can't even imagine how they're still getting through with all those rounds of people looking at it. But they do.
Oh, they absolutely do. And I've done some reading and brain
Hmm.
research. I find it fascinating how our brains work. And our brains fill in a lot. There's a lot of stuff that we think we are perceiving that we're really just filling in from
Yeah,
expectation. And that happens so much with editing. And it's really hard for the author in particular to break out of that because we know what should be there. And so we keep seeing what should be
yeah, and
there.
I can tell you, if I
Um,
had time, I the way that I listen to most of the books that I read, and I listen a lot on Audible, and I even have like on my iPhone, I have a thing that um, I'll listen to books on Kindle being read to me by just this computerized
mhm.
voice. And if I have time before a book goes live, if I send it to my Kindle and listen to it that way, I will probably catch every error that can be heard from hearing it spoken because um, that your brain doesn't have that expectation, or you know what I mean, like the fact that it's being read to you by a computerized voice
Yes.
takes care of that issue, and you'll hear everything then. Um, so, and I'm even like going back and listening to my older stuff, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I need to go change that. That's not right. Um, but and I don't always have time to do that. I mean, it's pretty rare that I have time to actually listen to a book before I get it out. I'm usually like finishing one project and then putting it down and going to another. So
So do you set pretty sharp deadlines for yourself?
I do, but a lot of those have come from the fact that I'm now writing with other people. So
Oh.
I have a partner that I'm co-writing a series with her, and so I have to, oftentimes when I'm working on my own books, I have to set them at certain times so that they're in between
Mhm.
what she and I are doing. And then I have other books that I'm just sort of like, I'm not going to set any date for those. When they get out, they get out. But that's pretty rare. And then I'm writing in some shared worlds now with other authors. And so, like, in, oh, I forget, I think starting in September, maybe, we'll start having books come out in a shared world um, with 5 of us writing in that world together. And so once that happens, then all of my books are like, you know, scheduled with them. And so yeah, it's going to make a difference with how I do things. So I try not to. I mean, but I just sometimes you can't get around it. You know.
That leads to one of my favorite reader questions, which is if you could write a book with any other author, alive or dead, who would you want to work with and why?
Um, I, there's no way I can pick just one on that. So I will tell you, I would pick um, Bev Peterson because I love. So she writes these books that are all of her books take place like at riding stables. Like a lot of them are racing stables, and when I was a kid, I rode. Well, I rode a little, and then I had a friend who rode a lot, and I would go to horse shows with her, and we'd go at like 4 in the morning. You get up and go get the horses ready and go to the show, and there was like a very distinctive um, feel and atmosphere there. And
Hmm.
Bev gets that across in her books so well. You really feel it in her books, and so I would love to write with her someday. And then Ilona Andrews, like I would just love to be able to write something with them because they're so amazing. That the husband and wife team I was talking about earlier that write the urban fantasy type stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I There's so many. Like there's just too many to really pick one.
Now, how does it work? You said you have a somebody you're writing with, but you're writing now the shared worlds. Each of you writes your own book, right?
Yeah, so the shared worlds, like I just did one called the Sleeper Seals, and that was with a group of 13 of us, I think. And that one was a little bit simpler than the one I have coming up. The Sleeper Seals was basically this concept of these retired SEALs being called back up to do jobs in the U.S. And so each of us just wrote like our own plots and stuff, but they all like you knew kind of going like the readers knew, okay, this is going to be, you know, a sleeper seal that gets called up for a specific job. So that was kind of a really cool way to just tie all the books together. And we put a book out every 2 weeks, which was cool because
Mm.
readers got to just like binge on that. So those are all still out there, and you can get those. Like if you just look for sleeper seals, you can find those. The one that I'm writing in starting in September is going to be a little bit more intricate than that. So it's only 5 authors because I think it would be hard to do with too many people.
Mhm.
And it is Dark Falls, Colorado. So it's going to be a big city in Colorado. And these ones are going to be more like I don't know if you ever read like Kendra Elliott, Melinda Lee, that type of feel, that sort of police thriller type thing, but
Yeah.
there's a romance in there also. So I tend to think of them as romantic thrillers. So
Mhm.
um, we're all basically we've set up this world of this fake city of Dark Falls, and we're each writing a story. And most of the stories they're going to be rounds of 5 books each, and so the 5th book, which is like the anchor book, will be the books that I write, and my plot is going to be sort of it's not like the plot is going to start really like people won't need to have read all the other books. There's no order that you need to read them in, but you'll see hints of my plot beginning in those first 4, and then
Yeah.
that'll kind of happen in so like my first in the first set of 5, book 5 is going to be an arson case, and so you'll see like the fires are going to start a little bit in the other books, and you'll see a little bit of that going on, but you won't need to have read those to read the actual arson book. But all of the previous characters, like we're working together so that all of the characters will show up just like they would in any other series that a single author writes. And so you'll get to know, like, okay, the hero for book 4 is going to show up in book 3. And you'll get to know him a little bit and, be wanting his story by the time you get to book 4. So it'll be kind of neat, but it's definitely more work. It's harder to do.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to get authors all together and on literally on the same page. There's the
Yeah.
old herding cats. That's very true with authors.
And, that's one of the things that we do is we have a project manager. So, um, like we have a Facebook page where we all talk. We have the shared world is in a big OneNote document so that we can all go in there and look at stuff. And then
Mhm.
we have another woman, one of the other authors is like phenomenal at making charts and things. So she has a chart that shows all the books, all the plots, all the heroes, and then they link into the OneNote thing so that you can click on anything in her chart and it takes you to the spot in the OneNote thing where that character is detailed. So there's a lot of like technical stuff that goes into it, but we also are just like, getting on the phone and having video calls where we say, okay, here's what I'm thinking writing, and we all kind of brainstorm it and stuff. So it's definitely harder, but it's a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be an amazing series when it comes out. I'm actually really excited about that one.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
I've done a couple of those. The first one was The Inheritance, which is a romance group, but
Hmm.
it was not as connected as yours. It
Yeah.
was, but we all started from the premise of a billionaire who had touched people's lives, and he dies and he leaves inheritances, and they vary from one is a wedding dress, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's a property, and then each of us who wrote a book tied that into existing series, as well.
Yeah.
So mine was in my Wyoming Wildflower series, but it also touched with all the other inheritance books. And we had a lot of fun with that. That was terrific.
Yeah. And that's how the Sleeper Seals one was more like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one called Rodeo Nights,
Hmm.
which is a little confusing because I have a book called Rodeo Nights Nights, and Rodeo Nights the series was
Hmm.
Knights. Somebody else started it and then invited me in to write a book. So yeah, they're a lot of fun, but they're also a lot of organizing. And I think one of the reasons I like being a writer is that I get to rule the world. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to share the throne
It is.
with anybody
It
else.
can be hard. Like there are times where I thought something should go some way, and that's not what people want. And it is really hard. But I don't know. It's also kind of fun because you have this, and definitely in my other, in the one that I co-author with my with Kay, she and I have had some, things where I really thought we needed a marriage counselor. I mean, we really have had some battles about how things should go, and I think you have to be more committed to making it happen than you are to like having it your own way. Um, but there's something really cool about being able to like call somebody else or jump online and grab somebody else and brainstorm your plot or your character, and just kind of have them there at the drop of the hat to
Hmm.
do stuff with you. I think that's really cool, and it makes writing easier when you have that.
Yeah. Having those sounding boards is really important for me. And I do have from all the years of being in the business of that I can call people up. And there was, for some reason, there's something about
Hmm.
calling long distance that automatically helps
Right.
plot problems go away. Some magic. I don't know what it is. I can walk around the house and say it out loud to myself
Yes.
for a week and I don't get anywhere. And I get
Yep.
on the phone and boom, there it is. So we've talked a lot about how weird writers are this time. Do you think writers look at the world differently? Can you see, especially because you kind of came to the actual writing, although you were doing stories in your head younger. Um,
Like I walked into the kitchen the other day and the wind had blown our window looks out on the like out the kitchen, and the fuse box is right next to the window. So if it's closed, you don't see it, but the wind had opened the fuse box. And so like, most people would see that and think the wind opened the fuse box, and I see that and I'm like, are there terrorists outside my house? Like did somebody just Yeah, and I had another when I had my third child. By then I was definitely, full on writing. I had been writing for about 3 years. And with her, I had a C-section. So I stayed in the hospital. With my other kids, I was out within 24 hours. I just wanted home. But with her, I was like, I'm staying. They let me stay for 5 days. I was like, I'm going to stay until you kick me out.
yeah.
Because, they had the nurses there and everything. And so one
Oh
day
wow.
I was, they have the little bassinets, the rolling bassinets. So one day I was rolling her down the hall to drop her at the nursery so I could take a nap. And two men came out of the elevator together, and one went one way and the other one went the other way. And I immediately turned around and went back to my room and took her back to my room with me, because I was like, those are terrorists that are separating so that they can each get to
With
one side of the wing. And if I have to get to her in the nursery and then get her out, that's a lot harder than trying to get her out if she's already with me in the room. So I know that writers think very differently than most normal people do. So
Yeah, we do. We see things that in a much more benign way. I often think my second book is set in Gloucester, Massachusetts, which was my dad's hometown, and we used to go for family reunions there for long before I started writing the book. And after the book came out, my sister-in-law said to me, now I get it. All the things that you would notice and comment on, we'd walk along the beach and I'd be looking at the houses and
Yep.
comment about this and you could get from this house to that house without anybody seeing you and all just the little things. And she said, I never understood before, but all those details showing up in these books. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it crazy? I mean, it's so funny how you see these little things and you're like, and you're thinking of like, ideas for, yeah, like pulling off a murder or, like whatever.
Yeah.
And nobody else is seeing that as you're walking along. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
and,
well.
and I think some of the listeners are now thinking, boy, I'm glad I'm not a writer.
I know, right?
But you are listeners and readers, and so you benefit from this too. So, Lori, what interactions do you have with readers? Do you have you're online with them a lot? Do you get letters? Have you had
Yeah,
any great encounters?
I do. I get a lot of like Christmas cards and letters and things like that. Most of my
Oh,
interaction is online. And I forget, I don't check my PO box very often. And so then I forget and I'll go like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks after Christmas and realize that it's full and I've been ignoring these people's cards and I feel really bad. But I do, most of it's online. I have like a Facebook group where I interact with my readers and stuff and, things like that. So a lot of it's going to be on like Facebook and stuff, but I do get a lot of emails and things, which are fun. And when I had my third child, I did have a lot of my readers actually sent gifts for her, which I thought was just so incredible. I had
oh,
like, handmade quilts and things, and I mean, it was just
oh,
incredible. Yeah,
fabulous!
little
Yeah.
onesies, and I mean, it was so cute. I got a bunch of little onesies for her and stuff, and I didn't thank everybody online. That a lot of times if somebody sends me something, I will like post a thank you on Facebook for it. I didn't for that because I didn't want anybody else who wasn't sending me something to feel like they should have been sending me a baby gift. But it was really amazing to get all these gifts from people when I was having my baby. Like I thought that was really incredible.
That is so sweet of people. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing like when you're before you start putting stuff out there, you don't realize that that could happen at all. And like the first time you get a reader email, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing. Somebody read my book and actually liked it enough to want to tell me about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like amazing. So it really is like an incredible feeling to get those kind of things.
I got my first book was out in 1990, so pre-internet days. And I got a reader mail and it came through the publisher and then to me, so it was rather delayed, but I looked at this and I thought, I don't know anybody in Oregon. What do you what is this? Now I do, but I didn't at that time. And I read it and I was stunned both that this wonderful person had gotten out of the book what I had intended to put in, or
Yeah.
tried to put in, and and I also had this really weird reaction that I'd known it, of course, in, intellectually, but it was like, oh my gosh, strangers are reading what I wrote. And I don't know why I had that delayed reaction to that fact when the book had been out for several months, but uh, it really I can remember standing there looking at that letter and going, "Oh my gosh, strangers are reading what I'm writing." Made me feel a little more self-conscious about the writing, but
I know it's really, I mean, it's just crazy to think that people, now it's like a given. Now I mean, not that, but I mean, there's probably at least one person out there who will read what I put out. But
so I want to ask you, for readers who have not read your work, they're brand new to you. Which books are good places for them to start?
I don't know. well, legalese is free everywhere, and so that's always a good one to start with. And my readers say that they love my Sutton Capital series, like that's their favorite one. For me, I always feel like it was my first book, so I don't feel like it's as good as my newer stuff, you know. But that one's my readers just absolutely love it. That's Jack and Kelly, and it's the marriage of convenience one. It does have a little twist on it. It's not he is like a, you know, billionaire kind of guy. Like he's the powerful CEO, and he needs to get married, but instead of him asking her, she's actually the one that proposes it to him. So it's got that little twist on it that I like, kind of having it be a little bit different. And that's perma free everywhere, so you know people can find that everywhere. I like you know, Love and Protect is the first in the Evers Texas series, and that's more of that, you know, intense suspense thing. And I think just because it's my it was probably about maybe the fifth or sixth book that I wrote, so it just, you know, I think it's just more developed. But and that one is in Kindle Unlimited. That most of my stuff is not Kindle Unlimited. It's not exclusive to Amazon. But the Ever series, for right now at least, is exclusive to Amazon. So you can get it on Kindle Unlimited. Or if readers, you know, if you read on another device, you can just download the Kindle app and get it there. But Sutton is available everywhere at all the retailers.
Okay. Do you have any books that you feel like even that might be overlooked a little bit, even by your best, most loyal readers?
You know, it's funny because I probably shouldn't point to these ones because, like, from a money making perspective, they're like Kindle World's little novellas, and they're not great. I mean, they're not great. They are great. They're not great in the sense that they don't connect to one of my other series, so they're not great from a marketing point of view for me. But I wrote I don't normally write paranormal stuff, but I wrote in Robin Peterman's Magic and Mayhem world, and I wrote this novella where the hero is actually the boogeyman, and I love that story. I mean, I love it. It was a really good story. Oh, it's called Any Which Way.
Cool.
And yeah, and it's super cute. I love it. And then I do have a baseball series that's also in Kindle Worlds. That's part of Bella Andre's Kindle World. And I love those ones. And those are not, you know, because they're in Kindle Worlds, a lot of people don't find them as much.
Yeah.
So you got to search for those. The which one, the boogeyman one is Any Which Way. And actually, his heroine is magic herself. So she's not just a witch, she's actually magic. And he has to find a way to woo her. But anyway, and then the baseball ones are the oh gosh, what are those called? The Triple Play Curse series. There's three of those, and then there's kind of a linked one. So there's kind of technically four of them, but it's the Triple Play Curse, and it's about a baseball team that thinks that they have a curse on their team, and if any one of them falls in love during the baseball season, three of them will fall before the curse ends, and it messes up their game, like because they're distracted by love. And so they're all desperately trying not to meet any women and not to fall in love during the series, and they of course, you know, fall in love. So it's a lot of fun. I like that one a lot.
I have a story in Bella Andre's Lucy Kevin.
Oh, you do? Oh,
world.
yeah.
Called The Wedding Caper.
Nice.
And that was one of my stories that I had put aside, and it's a fake engagement. And in The Wedding Caper, they have to do it to solve a mystery or small mystery. But it was one of the stories that I'd had put aside that I kept thinking, someday I'll make this work. And I did. Yay! Okay. Is there something I should have asked you that I haven't, or that you would like to answer?
I can't really think of anything. Let's see. I mentioned I do have the seventh book in the Evers Texas series is coming out May 1st. And then on April 24th, the third book in the series that Kay and I are writing together, which is the Canyon Creek series, and it's small town contemporary romance, that is coming out April 24th. And that's called, what is that called? Thank You for Loving Me.
Great. Okay. And where can readers find out more about those books and you and other books?
For my books, they're on LoriRyanRomance.com. And then for the small town contemporary romance that I write with Kay, that's LoriandK.com. And it's LORI is how it's
Yes.
spelled in both cases.
Great. That's wonderful. And we'll have that in the show notes. And now we get to do my very favorite part, the either ors. So you only get one. And I have actually I have one author who made it all the way through without caveats and adding. So let's see. We'll start you off with daisies or roses?
Roses.
Hot air balloon or train trip?
Train.
This should be a good one. Cat or dog?
Dog. An easy one for me.
House decorating or gardening?
Oh, gardening.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Winter.
Nail polish or bare nails?
Nail polish.
Opera or show tunes?
Show tunes.
Day or night?
Day.
Paper plates or best china?
Best china.
Ooh. Pickup or sports car?
Pickup.
Hiking boots or cowboy boots?
Hiking boots.
Spring or fall?
Spring.
Ice cream or cake?
Oh, cake.
Okay, and this is the last one. Grab the best first or save the best for last?
Oh, save, I think.
I don't know if that qualifies as you making it all the way through with an I think. At the end, you were so close, Lori. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us and talking about reading and writing and books. It's great to hear some of the stories behind your stories and what you're up to, and to catch up. And I hope I see you at another Writers Police Academy or another event.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And for the listeners, hope you'll come back and hear another author and hearing their stories behind the stories. In the meantime, have a great week of reading. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye. If you like this podcast, we hope you'll consider becoming a supporter through our Patreon page. With a small monthly donation as little as $1 a month, you can help with the hosting and editing costs that make the show possible. To thank our Patreon supporters, we offer them special bonuses. Find out more at authorslovereaders.com or at patreon.com/authorslovereaders. That's PATREON. We also hope you'll subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review wherever you listen to us. Both of those help more folks find the podcast. Of course, the very best way for other folks to find the podcast is for you to tell them about it. So we sure hope you will.